Is it still worth it moving to Tampa in the year 2025? After 2020, a lot of people moved to Florida, and Tampa was one of those cities that everybody flocked to. But the growth that Tampa was facing isn't the same anymore. Less people are moving to Tampa. So is Tampa really worth considering if you've been thinking about moving here? That's what we're going to talk about on today's video. Now, there are hundreds of videos by realtors and brokers and people who are developers and want to sell you houses in Tampa. So on my YouTube channel, we don't sugarcoat things. If you want a sugarcoat video, write Tampa Realtor and you'll get about 10,000 videos from people who've tried to sugarcoat things. On our channel, we speak things for what they are. The goal of our channel is to help people who are moving understand warnings about the places they're moving to that other people won't tell them because they have a financial interest involved. As far as honesty goes on my YouTube channel, even when my wife had a real estate license, I ran a series on homelessness in Florida. So I give my audience complete, honest reviews about the places we talk about. And for the people who are saying that everything I say about Florida is negative, you're the one who clicks on these videos and then comments on them. Every single week, I upload videos about going to the beaches. Do any of those people who say I'm making Florida look bad or all my videos are negative ever click on one of my beach videos and say, what a nice day at the beach? They don't. Those videos barely get 1,000 views and they barely get 10 comments. So the same people who criticize me for making videos like today's video are the same people who would never go on the videos that they're telling me to make. They want negativity and they want to cry about the fact you're making negativity. I cater to the algorithm, and this is the garbage that you people click on. So you can't be mad at me because I do upload beach videos and nobody watches them. I do show nice areas. They don't get views. You guys want gangs, homelessness, shootings, violence, and economical collapse. This is the type of clickbait crap that you guys click on, and then you get mad at me when I give you what you want. Bunch of crybabies. At the moment, my YouTube channel isn't hiring a marketing director, so I don't give a crap what your opinion is about what I choose to upload or not. And for the people who are realtors and brokers in Tampa and developers, as soon as I see your comments, I'm just going to delete them. You have saturated the internet with your propaganda, and a video like this will get 100 times more views than yours ever will because it's going to stand out as something different. So now that we've gotten through that crap, because I know that's what I'm going to see in the comment section, let's talk about Tampa. Is it really worth moving there? Okay, so let me explain to you guys what Tampa actually is. Highlighted in red is the city limits of Tampa. Highlighted in black is what the city limits of Tampa should actually look like. Highlighted in green up there, all that is considered Tampa city limits. And for all practical purposes, that area is too far from the city core to be considered city limits. And then highlighted in red is an area that should be part of Tampa's city limits, but it isn't. So what's weird about Tampa is that it's got pretty good crime analytics. For example, the homicide rate for Tampa is 10 per 100,000. That's an eighth of Birmingham, Alabama. That's a quarter of Cincinnati. That's a third of Louisville, Kentucky. That's a far safer city than most large cities in the United States. It's not as safe as Los Angeles or as safe as New York, but it is like pretty good for a large city. However, the real feel of danger in Tampa is a little distorted by the fact that, like I said, there's a whole area way up there, almost to Zephyr Hills, that's considered part of Tampa city limits, and it kind of distorts the crime analytics, as well as the whole eastern part of Tampa that should be within city limits, and it isn't, and that also distorts the crime analytics. So for practical purposes, despite the fact that Tampa has some pretty good crime analytics, if you're in the Tampa area, it's going to feel a little bit more crimey than what the analytics would suggest. Now, when I talk about crime rates, I'm talking about homicide rates. All other analytics of crime are completely useless today. car theft, arson, theft, burglary, all that is useless today because every city takes crime reports in a different way. What's considered a felony in one city could be allowed in the next. What one city could be pursuing heavily, the next city may not even care about. So today, the only real crime analytics that matter are like a few hand-selected analytics like homicide and overdose rates. Now, Hillsborough County's overdose death rate is actually below the Florida state average. Like most other urban cores in Florida, the overdose rates are less. Now, the suburban counties surrounding Tampa are among the worst in the state. So the overdose crisis isn't so much in Hillsborough, the urban core, but in Pasco, Pinellas, Hernando, and all the adjacent rural counties. That's where things are really bad with overdoses. So for practical purposes, the city of Tampa is fairly safe overall. It is nothing like some other large cities like Memphis, Detroit, Jacksonville. These cities are way more crimey than Tampa. Tampa is overall very safe. In fact, Tampa is so safe that we actually go live streaming in dangerous neighborhoods late at night. So it's a very safe city. I would never do that in Atlanta, Jacksonville, Memphis, Louisville. The list goes on and on about cities where that would be a horrendous idea. In Tampa, it's okay to do it because overall, Tampa is a very safe city. So crime really isn't going to be a problem for you unless you end up like in these places right here. It's only like half the map you got to avoid. It's not like the whole map is horrendous. And if you think that's a little bit too harsh, then these are the areas you definitely want to avoid. So if your budget is tighter, then definitely avoid these areas. University, Cross Fletcher, any exit off the interstate, East Tampa, around Grant Park, Orient Park. Those are horrible places to end up. Now this right here is called South Tampa, the Bayshore area. If you have a lot of money, this is worth it. So if you are making like over $200,000 a year, I would definitely recommend Tampa. So let's suppose you have a lot of money. You're kind of like in the 5 or 10 percentile of earners. Tampa would be a great place for you because the problem of Tampa is really an economic problem. But if you have money, you can enjoy this area very well. So if you're buying in Tampa and you got money or you want to move to Tampa and you want to live in a really good area and you can afford it, these are the areas that I would recommend living in Tampa. Area 1 is Davis Island, Area 2 is South Tampa, and Area 3 is kind of like if you had to, you could end up there. If you're able to live in this part of Tampa, you have access to downtown Tampa for events and restaurants. You have access to the airport easily. You have bridges to the west heading into the beaches of Pinellas County. It is a very centrally located area. The best restaurants, events, things to do are all situated in this part of Tampa. Beautiful areas to go for a walk, places to go fishing. Everything that you need in Tampa is located here. Obviously, most people living in Tampa are not going to be able to afford living in this area. If this area is within your budget, then I think your experience of living in Tampa will be a very enjoyable experience. Obviously, it isn't as chaotic or expensive as a similar area in Miami. It isn't as boring as Naples or Fort Myers, but it has a lot more things to do with relatively close enough to the same type of safety. Living in this area, safety will not be that much of a concern. Theft could be because these areas are not gated. These aren't gated communities. As you guys know, most of the growth and development in Florida is within gated communities. You're going to be within a city grid pattern, so I've noticed that people here are a little paranoid. We are now on Davis Island, and this is clearly one of the most desirable places to live in Tampa. To live here, you're going to have a lot of money. The vibe is cool. The access to everything you need is close by. It's a relatively safe area. You don't see a lot of police presence, but something tells me that there's a lot of undercovers here. The roads are wide, parking is ample. Places to go for a walk, for a stroll are everywhere. The restaurants are good. If you're able to afford living on Davis Island, you're probably going to love living in the Tampa area. I do a lot of Uber Eats deliveries here, and usually you can expect at least 1 in 3 people to give you at least a $15 tip. It's a very wealthy, affluent area, and the people here seem to be fairly generous and kind. But because these are not gated communities, it's kind of one of the few affluent places in Florida that are not gated. The people are very wary of outsiders. So if one day you go outside in pajamas, you can expect people to give you some pretty nasty looks. It's not that people here are nasty overall, but there is somewhat of a concern for safety, probably theft, because again, it's a large metropolitan area and it isn't gated. So that is something that I've noticed about Davis Island every time I go there, that the people are fairly freaking paranoid. If you're not able to live here on Davis Island with the wealthiest elites of Tampa, you can still consider living in Area 2, which is South Tampa. Lots of restaurants. It is an urban area, but it's very clean, very safe. There's a little bit of homelessness along the major roads, but it isn't anything out of the normal. It's just, again, it's a grid pattern, so everybody can go there. So these are areas that are not like in Naples where everything's gated. If you need to live behind a gate because you're afraid, there's places like Naples, Florida for you. These are open city grid patterns. There really isn't that much gated community within the city limits of Tampa unless you end up way the crap up there by Zephyr Hills. And a lot of people are ending up in New Tampa, Wesley Chapel. These are nice suburbs. Now, I've noticed that doing food delivery, about a third of all deliveries that I got were people that live in Wesley Chapel, Zephyr Hills, and way the crap up that way, and they order food from Tampa. So if you live up there, you're not going to have restaurants available like you do in Tampa. And this is a huge thing you're going to have to consider if you move way the crap out there. So Tampa's grid pattern is very impractical once you're not in the city urban core. So once you move into the suburbs, whether you're north of Tampa, northeast of Tampa, like Wesley Chapel or New Tampa, or even worse, Brandon and Valrico, for all practical purposes, you might as well not even be in Tampa. Now, this time of year, traffic is light. A lot of people stop moving to Florida. There's not that much going on in the state. A lot of tourists aren't coming here anymore, so the state's kind of dead. If things go back to busy, it will be an absolute nightmare for you to have to live in one of these far outskirts suburbs and have to commute into Tampa. Your life will be absolutely miserable. That may not be the case right now because we're kind of in a slump economically in Florida, but if things do pick up again and you move to Wesley Chapel, Zephyr Hills, or any of these other far suburbs like New Tampa, your life will absolutely suck every single day. You have no idea, especially if you have to end up heading north into Wesley Chapel on Interstate 4 heading east. You're going to hate your life dearly. And to be fair, even 275 can get pretty chaotic. Another thing to consider is that Tampa Bay is heavily contaminated. On this particular day, we stopped on this side of Davis Island to a spot right here. You can just park your vehicle and fish or sit on a bench. We took a little break right here, and let me tell you, the smell of chemicals or contamination or whatever the crap it was completely unbearable. Now, as you guys know, Tampa is in the state of Florida, and the state of Florida isn't a state known for good incomes. Now, despite the fact that Tampa is in a state that doesn't have good incomes, the city limits of Tampa's income level is below the state average. Now, most cities have incomes higher than the state. The city of Tampa is a poor city in a poor state. When it comes to incomes, Tampa is seriously disadvantaged. Like I said, according to city data, as of last year, Tampa's incomes were below the state average, a state that doesn't have good incomes. On top of that, the prices for real estate in Tampa are significantly higher than the state average. So for the average person living in Tampa, simply doesn't make sense. Despite the fact it's a city, its incomes are below the state average, and its cost of living, housing, is significantly higher than the rest of the state. Do you guys want exact figures? I'll give them to you because somebody's always disputing these analytics. Now, there's always somebody disputing your analytics in the comments section, and it's always because they don't like it. Just because you don't like something doesn't change the facts. So if you move to Tampa, you're going to make about $460 less than the state average. Now, when you go to buy a house in Tampa, you're going to be paying $73,000 more than anywhere else in the state. So that is a definite downside to somebody moving to Tampa who is, well, kind of run-of-the-mill average American. The math doesn't add up. As a YouTuber, I have been warning people about this situation with Tampa for a long time. I live in the metropolitan area of Tampa. I live in Lakewood Ranch. My rent right now is for a 2-bedroom out the door, with utilities and all that, I'm pushing at like $2,700 a month for a 2-bedroom. I just looked at my community's rents, and it looks like when I go to renew my lease, they're going to go up about $300 because that's what they're listing for. So when I go to renew my lease, they're going to give me the new rate, and it's going to go up. So I'll practically be at $3,000 with utilities for a 2-bedroom apartment in this metropolitan area. It makes absolutely no sense. Now, Lakewood Ranch is one of the better suburbs, just like Wesley Chapel, but come on, these numbers are unreal. For example, if you're in Cincinnati, you're making $54,000 a year, you're paying $250,000 for a house. That should just give you an idea how much harder life is in Tampa. Not only are you going to have to make $20,000 more a year, but housing is going to cost you almost twice as much. So this is the reality of Tampa. So if you live in a more affordable, more economical city, let me tell you that Tampa's not for you because you're going to have to make more money, pay more money, and you're going to feel like you're economically swamped. In Indianapolis, with just a few $1,000s less a year than Tampa, you're getting a house that's about half as much. So the math of Tampa isn't easy if you're thinking about moving here. So if you're relocating from Indianapolis to Tampa, you might make $5,000 more a year. But let me tell you that those $5,000 are going to make very little difference when you got to come up with an extra $210,000 just for housing. So in Tampa, Florida, incomes are relatively average, but cost of living is considerably elevated compared to other large cities. And that makes Tampa a very difficult place to live for the average person. So I guess what we can learn from today's video is if you're wealthy and affluent, you may do pretty well in Tampa. But if you're just an average run-of-the-mill type of person like me, Tampa will be a very difficult place for you to survive. And this isn't a recent thing. It's kind of always been like that in Tampa. I think for the economical aspect, Tampa probably isn't a good option for about 90% of people thinking they're going to move here. Now, when it comes to food, Tampa is a great food city. It's not New Orleans or Miami, but Tampa, in all its merits, is definitely a city that can throw down some good cooking. So if you enjoy going to restaurants, bars, like nightlife and stuff like that, you'll like the Tampa area. It's kind of spread out, and I think a lot of people that move to Tampa really miss out on the best of Tampa because they're so narrow-minded on where they're going to be. A lot of people just stick to downtown or kind of the hipster areas or Channelside or off of Kennedy or South Tampa. They're very specific about where they go. But Tampa has a very diverse food scene. And if you just narrow your mind a little bit, you're going to miss out on a lot. You have to kind of widen out, explore the city, explore all the different areas. There's Cuban, Colombian, Puerto Rican. When it comes to Latin food, Tampa has it. There's also a pretty good Arab food scene. So if you like Mediterranean food, that's another thing you're going to enjoy. I know most people that move here are probably just going to do sushi and stuff like that and bars. And hey, to each their own. But there's a lot more in Tampa than just that. So if you like going out and enjoying nightlife and dining, I think Tampa will be a pretty good city for you. When it comes to weather, it's hard to beat Tampa. I mean, it's not as warm as South Florida, and it isn't as cold as North Florida. It's almost perfect weather. It's warm enough throughout the year to where you can enjoy it, There are some cold days, but hey, once or twice a year hurts nobody. So overall, Tampa, when it comes to weather, is a great city, and it doesn't have the same propensity of hurricanes as other parts of the state. The west side of Tampa is Hispanic, the east side is black, and everything else, particularly the south side, is predominantly white. The urban core is very mixed, and then of course, once you drive far out into the suburbs, it becomes exclusively white. This is the way the city of Tampa is laid out. Now, the city of Tampa, I wouldn't call it segregated. I would call it unique communities. On the east side, you have a black community. On the west side, you have a Hispanic community. And of course, the higher income area is the white area in South Tampa, and that is exclusively a white area. There are three different communities with three different cultures and three different things going on. Along Armenia, you have a large Colombian and Cuban and Puerto Rican community. You have a lot of Puerto Ricans in the east as well by Brandon, Dominicans as well in the east. So there's different communities in different areas of the city. So if you want to be close to particular types of restaurants and entertainment, then you might want to pick your side of the city accordingly. Now, people in Tampa can be really, really nasty, road ragey, disrespectful. People here are potty mouthed. Let me just show you one interaction that I had in a parking lot where I ran into two people that were angry at the same spot. So as I'm pulling into this parking lot, the car in front of me is going to the same place we are. Notice how they decided that they were going to back into the parking spot, even though I'm right behind them. So look what they did. They literally decided they were going to back into this parking spot, even though they were in front of me. Now, anywhere else in America, they would have noticed that there's a car behind them and pulled into the parking spot. So they decided that even though I was behind them, that they were going to back into this parking spot. So they gave me a really nasty attitude. Now, in my lifetime driving, I've never ran into somebody so entitled that they felt the need to back up into a parking spot when there's a vehicle right behind them. But I'm in a giant pickup truck, and nobody in a tiny Honda is going to be pushing me around in the road. Regardless, that was kind of a really weird interaction. It just kind of shows you how entitled people in Tampa can be. So now, as I'm leaving, I notice that there's a girl standing in the middle of the road over here. And I am an inquisitive person, and I decided to mess with her. Look at how wrong this interaction went. You couldn't really hear the audio too well, but she was on the phone kind of screaming at somebody because the restaurant's blasting music. And by the way, she's in her work uniform, so I pulled up and I was like, hey, he's always wrong, because she was screaming at somebody on the phone. And I was like, hey, yeah, he's always wrong. He's always, whatever. But I've done these types of interactions with people, and they don't flip the crap out. So she was like, who the do you think you're talking to? And she got like really angry and got into like this violent defensive pose. And I was like, hey, I'm on the headphone. Like, I told her I was on a headpiece. Like, I was, hey, I'm on a headpiece. I'm not even talking to you, because I realized that she was just really violent. And I mess with people all the time, and it's a good way to get a vibe for places. Like, sometimes they just ignore you. Other times they start a conversation. Like, I was recently on the beach on Siesta Key, and there was a guy walking past me. And I said, why are you holding a pigeon? He was just holding a shirt. He's like, that's not a pigeon, man. Are you crazy? We started a conversation, and we talked for like 10 minutes, So I mess with people, and usually their reaction isn't like cursing you out and trying to fight. But this lady was very angry. She cursed me out. If you notice, there was like a homeless person sitting there as well, so kind of trashy. But anyways, this woman got really, she looked like she was going to attack me. So I was like, hey, I'm on a headpiece. Like, I pretended I wasn't even talking to her. Oh, I'm sorry. Like, I'm on a headpiece. She's like, who the f-? She starts cursing me out. And then as I drove off, I said, yo, mama, because, well, who do you think you're talking to? Yo, mama. And I drove off. But very angry. And recently, there was a road rage incident in Riverview, which is a suburb on the east side of Tampa, where somebody shot and killed a biker over a road rage incident. Isn't that crazy? And this is the type of things that happen in Tampa. So, like, perhaps in the city where you're from, like you can talk to a stranger, or you might see somebody on the street, be like, oh, that dog's fat or something, you know, like, and they'll crack up. Like, I'm a person that's inquisitive. I talk to people and I see somebody and I'll say something about their shoes not matching or something, and most people crack up, or they'll make a smarky remark back and whatever. Like, that's what you do in urban places. Like, I do it all the time everywhere I go. In Tampa, you have to be really careful interacting with people, because there's people that will instantly turn violent, and there's really nasty people here. So it isn't really a good vibe. Like I said, when I go to the beaches here, I do nothing but mess with people. 95% of people just laugh, or they'll start a conversation with you to try to figure you out. Then there's that 5% that just ignores you or says, I'm sorry, I don't know you, and they'll walk away. And then like 1 in 1,000 is this lady right here. But that's the type of people you meet in Tampa. They're just really angry people in Tampa. So just know that people here are really freaking nasty. And just as recently as last week, we had a road rage shooting. That's crazy. The guy killed somebody over a road rage. So you got to be really careful in Tampa interacting with people, because some people are nasty. During the live stream, there was a guy, he pulled up, his car was like big giant rims and whatever, and I just said, hey, nice car. And he said, what do you say to me? And I was like, whoa, like I wasn't, like I like the car, bro. But like in Tampa, that's the way people are. If that had been in Fort Myers or Miami, they'd been like, yo, thanks, bro, whatever. Like, people dap you up, and they, they're more interactive. In Tampa, people ain't like that. The people here are really nasty, really scummy, really dirty, really entitled. So if you're not used to that level of disrespect out in public, you may not like Tampa at all. So interacting with people here is really freaking weird. Now, Tampa during like the Pale Mill days was a huge city for that. And I think a lot of people here are still kind of going through that phase to a degree, to where like you get people that are just really antisocial. They don't know how to react with other people and stuff like that. I Uber drive in this area, and like you'll have people that get in the Uber and they won't even say hi to you. And I'll tell them like, hey bro, this is my car. You don't have to be in here. So you're not going to sit in here and not even say hi to me, because you're going to walk. You know what I mean? And I get those people all the time. I've also got people here, if they're females, they'll talk on the phone with somebody else during the whole ride because they think you're going to hurt them. That's not normal. Like, I've never had that happen to me in Sarasota or Bradenton. Every time I go to Tampa and I Uber drive, the female is always on the phone with a guy, because they're afraid of the Uber driver doing something crazy. It's really freaking creepy, and it makes me want to kick them out of the ride. So, like I said, if you're in the neighborhoods, people are paranoid. They're watching you. If they get into an Uber, they're on the phone with their husband or a friend because they're afraid to be in the Uber with a stranger. Like, people here have some real freaking social anxieties. From what I've gathered, a lot of people here like to self-medicate. So a lot of people here think that they're doctors and they can prescribe themselves whatever they want. And I think that might be part of their anxiety disorder. Now, there is not as much racial tensions in Tampa as in other cities, but the young people are really, really dry. If you get somebody older, like when I get older African Americans, they love me. They talk to me. We have great conversations. So if you get an older African American person, they're really friendly, very talkative. But if you get a young person like 35 or less on Uber and they're a different race than you, they won't talk to you. They just kind of like give you the cold shoulder. And a lot of times I tell them, hey, it's my car. If you don't want to be here, you let me know. But like I said, I don't encounter that with the older people. It's the younger generation that's like that. So I think with the young people here, there's somewhat of a social disability where people don't know how to interact with other people. You may have heard of the Seattle freeze. Well, this is kind of something like that. It's kind of like a culture of social disability and social anxiety among some of the people here, particularly like the youth and the hipsters and stuff like that, where they just feel like they're indifferent to everybody else in society. And sometimes it's borderline disrespectful. You get that a lot in cities like New York, Los Angeles, and unfortunately Tampa. And for me, it's very aggravating. Like, again, if you get in my Uber, you're going to say, hello, how are you? I know when somebody doesn't want to talk to me, and I don't force people to talk to me, but I also don't allow disrespect. And getting into my car and not saying hello to me, and then when I say hello again, you're just kind of like, oh, you're there? I'm like, yeah, you're out. So anyways, it isn't my type of thing, but people here do have the Seattle freeze, the Los Angeles entitled behavior, the New York busyness to them. And I don't know why they think that's appropriate, but that's the way they are. And it makes for a very crappy vibe. And you know where part of the problem stems from? The amount of scammers and fraudulent people that you have in Tampa. It's like every time you get out of a gas station, there's somebody asking you for $1 or telling you some snobby story about how their dog died last night and how their landlord kicked them out and how they just need $5 for another hit of rent or something like that. And it really gets annoying. So I think part of the problem in Tampa stems from the fact that there are so many people that are vagrant, that are panhandling, that people just get irritated by anyone interacting with them because they think they're trying to get something out of them. And in my case, I don't treat people like that. So you're not going to treat me with that level of disrespect because you're from a scummy place. So I wouldn't want to live around people that are like that, okay? But at the end of the day, that's really the problem with Tampa. Like I've noticed, like in Tampa, and I've been going there, like I've been there 3 times this week, I think, or something like that, 2 or 3 times this week, and for, working and everything in the city. And what I've noticed is like the homeless people will like dig through the garbage, but they'll do it like in a dumpster that's by the road so you can see them. And it's kind of like they pretend like they're digging through the garbage to get people to give them food or money. So the panhandlers are very aggressive. They develop very unique tactics to get people to give them money. So when you have so many transient, so many homeless, and so many vagrant people on the streets of a city, it turns people like that. Because everywhere you go, there's somebody asking you for $1, somebody trying to talk to you, and they act like they're normal, but then all of a sudden they pull some weird twist out of nowhere. And that's kind of why people are so freaking upset in Tampa, because on a daily basis, they're dealing with scummy people. If you guys were watching my Tampa live stream, I had a pickup at a restaurant for a meal. When I got to the restaurant, they're like, oh, we didn't make the meal. But all of a sudden, one of the waitresses needed a ride home. So I think it's like where they order a meal from a restaurant, and then they cancel, they don't make the meal, so the meal can never be delivered. You as a driver now have to cancel that because they didn't make it, they're refusing to make it, so that goes against your cancellation rate, and now you have to give somebody a ride who isn't doing it through the Uber app, they're trying to do it on the side for cash, so you're dealing with people that are constantly trying to be scumbags. And if you think that goes across racial lines, if you saw the live stream, it was a Florida native white woman. So everybody here gets scummy. It isn't just one race. There's always somebody in the comments, well, it's the usual suspects. On meth, living in a trailer and inbreeding. The usual suspects for what, dude? I hate to see those comments because everybody's always trying to make it seem like it's a racial thing. If you watch that live stream, that was a Florida-born grandma who pulled a classic scam on me on Uber, making me have to raise my cancellation rate, making me have to put it. There are people that put you on the spot and scam you and whatever. And I knew it was a scam from the start, but I ran with it because I was doing a live stream out of the car and I wanted you guys to see this scenario unfold. So I can't do that with a regular Uber passenger because it violates their privacy. But since she wasn't an Uber passenger, I was able to record for a live stream, and it gave you guys a view of what it's actually like to deal with these scummy people pulling scummy tricks out of the bag. But in Tampa, you're always dealing with people that are pulling a rabbit out of the hat with some type of social interaction. So now you have to become defensive. You have to be kind of like that because of all of the social pressure that you get from people trying to scam you, trying to defraud you. So like you can almost understand why some people in Tampa become that way, because on a daily basis they have to deal with people that are just looking to bother them, harass them, panhandle from them, extort. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's definitely an irritation. Like I mess with people not to irritate them. I just think it's a socially interesting thing, and I do it all the time, and some people love it. And sometimes people tell me, hey, you made my day. Like it was just another random day until a stranger walked up to me and asked me why I was holding a pigeon. And I was like, what pigeon? Where's there a pigeon? And most of the time it makes people's days happy. You know what I mean? Like I did the whole pigeon thing with another guy on the beach, and we talked for like 20 minutes, man. He told me, I had an uncle that raised pigeons back in, England or whatever the crap. And we talked forever. Like most places you can interact with people and not have to be afraid of them. But in Tampa, you got so many scummy people that people are afraid to interact. And well, I think part of living in a city is the interactions with other people. And if you live in a city where people are so scummy that people are afraid of interacting with other people, then it isn't fun anymore to live in a city. Like I remember when I was little, we used to go to Miami and we'd buy our meat at this market, and it took forever because it was a large order. basically you can get your meat for half price in the store in Miami. So we would go from Naples to Miami, and it took a long time because my parents would buy it in bulk to save money. But we would just hang outside this meat market for hours and talk to strangers and interact with people, and it was a normal thing. Like, there's cities where the people there make that city fun and interesting, and then there's cities where people there are so tired of scummy people that they become angry and intolerant of other people because they assume the absolute worst, probably with reason. Now, every once in a while in Sarasota or Bradenton, you can catch a ride to Tampa, and some of the rides that I've caught to Tampa have been some of the scariest people and interactions I've ever dealt with. People who threaten you, people who are doing really weird stuff. Like, give you one example. One day I picked up this girl, and this girl was like really scammy, finessey. She said, she was a lady of the night, and she worked at a club, and her boyfriend, was bad, and she wanted to make all these extra stops and do all these things. And I was like, look, you can either go to your destination or not. And I actually got off an exit and tried kicking her out, but she refused to get out. Like, she wouldn't get out, so I had to take her to Tampa. When I got to Tampa, her wannabe gangster white boy boyfriend covered in tattoos in West Tampa came out acting all tough, trying to threaten me like if I was scared of a white boy from Tampa. With all the places I've lived in Alabama, Birmingham, Montgomery, Louisville. I was born in Cuba, so a white boy from Tampa isn't going to impress me very much. But anyways, that was a really weird scenario, and they gave me a bad review, and then they try to complain about the ride, trying to get their money refunded, and horrible. Another time I took a girl from kind of like Parrish or Ruskin, somewhere out there, and I took her to Tampa. And when we got to her destination, she was like crawled up in a seat. This was already at night, and she didn't want to get out the Uber, and I think they were trying to set me up for a robbery. And I told her she had to get out the Uber. She refused to get out of the Uber. So I finally told her, look, if you don't get out, I can take you to a police station. I can take you to a gas station. You can get out, but you're not staying in my car. She refused to get out of the car. She said she didn't have a phone, but she did because I saw her on the phone earlier. Now, keep in mind, this is like late at night. I gave this girl like so many different options, and she wouldn't get out of the car. So I finally called 911. When I dialed 911, now she was like crawled up in the corner of the car in the back seat with her legs on the seat, acting like she was like a corner cat, crying and screaming and saying she was afraid, she didn't know where she was, and she didn't know what to do. She was playing the victim, right? The moment that I dialed 911, she launched forward, tried to snatch my phone, and which she couldn't snatch it. Then she ran out the door and disappeared into the night. And now I'm on the phone with 911. They're like, hello, what's going on? I'm like, I'm an Uber driver, and I just had a passenger try to snatch my phone and run out of the car. So that happened to me in Tampa. And they're like, do you want to press charges? I'm like, well, I don't live here, so I'm safe, and that's all that matters. If you want to look for a suspicious person, this is where I'm at. You can try to find her, but she quickly disappeared. So in Tampa, human trafficking is a huge problem. And I think what happens is a lot of times when you get a passenger going from like Sarasota or Bradenton to Tampa, like every once in a while, like the police will do raids in Tampa trying to shut down the human trafficking rings. So they'll either go to Lakeland for a while or they'll come to Bradenton or Sarasota for a while. So in the morning, you can catch rides to the airport, but if they're going to like a residential area in Tampa, you gotta be really, really careful because a lot of them are females that they just send them down here. They're like, hey, go to this hotel over there in Bradenton, and then you'll end up getting these females back to Tampa. They're just, and they'll tell you they're dancers or something, right? But you know what they're really saying. And a lot of times they're like in these really weird compromised positions, and like transporting them is really scary, like you don't know what they're going to pull. Sometimes they're crying. Sometimes they're, it's really, really scary. And I've had like 3 girls like that where they live in Tampa, they're being trafficked out of Tampa, and then they come to Bradenton, you give them a ride back, and then you're stuck with an hour ride with this weird woman crying and scared and anxious, and you're like, what is going on with this person? And, they're like, oh, I'm a dancer, and, I have to go back to work, and, like, it's really scary, but this is a huge problem. Most of these girls are heavily addicted, so that's why they're being able to use them. But the underlying issue with Tampa is that when a city's incomes are too low for the housing costs, people have to get crafty and creative to get by because they can't make enough money. People still gotta live, So when an entire city isn't making enough money to live, people get crafty with finding extra ways of making money. And that's where things get scummy and dirty because everybody's out there plotting because nobody's got enough money to survive. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but all of the most scammy cities in America have the same exact scenario. Housing is so expensive that people have to get creative to make a living, and that's where you get these scummy type cities where everybody's got a scheme of some sort to get you. If you look through the arrest records in Tampa, it's disappointing. Now, most of them are from New York, okay? And you go to the Hillsborough County arrest records, you can see it yourself. A lot of them are practically scamming old people, defrauding old people. Like they run these schemes where they like take away people's benefits. You know, they take old people's food stamps and stuff. Like there's some horrendous exploitative criminal behavior going on in Tampa, and it all stems from the fact that there's people there who don't have the credentials to make enough money for housing, so they find creative ways to make a living exploiting other people. Scams, swindle, frauding, all that is very common in Tampa, and most of the people engaging in those activities are people who moved here from New York. So if you go through the arrest records of Hillsborough County, you'll see an onslaught of that type of criminal activity. So that's kind of a unique problem that Tampa has. And there's no nice way of saying it, but it's basically ghetto people with suburban price tags of living, and they have to get crafty to make the ends meet. So if I had to find a way of describing the issue with living in Tampa, it would be ghetto people, unskilled people, people who can't make enough money because they got a criminal record, they got a baby daddy, they got a baby mama, they're indebted, they got a criminal registry of some sort. They're just financially screwed. Yet they got to come up with a lifestyle rent cost that is unreal. And that's why it makes the city so scummy. Because you have people that don't have credentials, but they definitely have responsibilities. And that's the way I would describe why living in Tampa is a nightmare. So that's the reality of living in Tampa. I think if you're rich, it's a great place to be. But if you are the working class poor person with a baby mama, child support, bad credit, criminal record from Rochester, New York, there's probably 1,000 other people just like you here who've already tried it and it hasn't gone well for them.